Welcome back to 101 East. Joining me from Tokyo to discuss Japan's upcoming election is Yukari Sato, member of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, or the LDP. Yukihisa Fujita is from the opposition Democratic Party of Japan, otherwise known as the DPJ. And Jeff Kingston, Professor of Asian Studies at Tokyo's Temple University. Thank you all for joining me today. Jeff Kingston, if I can start with you. Now, the DPJ is expected to win these polls. If the party is successful, yes, how much is this election then a vote of confidence for the DPJ, or is it a message against the LDP?
Yes, well, it's actually both. Clearly, voters have soured on the LDP. The misery index is soaring. 5 years ago, the people gave the LDP a massive mandate, and it's done very little with it. And so, obviously, voters think there's a, need for change. I mean, the LDP has been in power for 50 years, and they seem to be out of fresh ideas, and the DPJ is offering them a variety of different campaign pledges about how they're going to revive the economy and improve social welfare issues, which are very much on the minds of the Japanese people. So I think it is a rejection of the LDP and a vote for the hope that the DPJ is offering.
Yukari Sato, my next question is to you. After 5 decades of being in power, how is it that the LDP can lose the public's vote?
Well, I guess over the more than 4 decades of being a ruling party, the LDP has definitely lost its competitiveness in the Japanese political arena. But I guess it is a time for the LDP itself to change itself. A lot of young in the middle range LDP politicians, however, are very serious in trying to change the LDP itself. But just the body as a party is so big that the mind of fresh people doesn't get hurt that much. That's the basic problem of LDP, I think.
Yukihisa Fujita, apart from 10 months of being in power in 1993, the DPJ has mainly been in the opposition. How much confidence really can the Japanese public have in a party that really hasn't been tested running the country?
Well, I think in a sense, having been out of the government is a merit that those who have been in power for the last 6 decades have messed the lives of the people. So the fact that we have been out of the government is a merit. And for the first time, a regime change will take place. And that makes only China, North Korea, Cuba remain who have not experienced the regime change.
And you think the DPJ is ready to lead the country despite not having any experience in terms of leading the country at all?
Because we have been out of government, therefore we have not been run by the bureaucrats. And the fact that it's not politicians but the bureaucrats have ruled Japan for 6 decades, I think, therefore, we have been in the opposition parties who are preparing to take power in the government.
Jeff Kingston, would you agree with that?
Well, I think that the LDP's campaign strategy is to focus on whether or not the DPJ is ready for prime time. And there are a lot of question marks about whether it can deliver on all the wonderful promises it's making and whether it can hit the ground running. I mean, it's all well and fine to hit a populist message. Everybody loves to hate bureaucrats, and so you run against the bureaucrats, say, we're going to take the power away from them, we're going to lead the country. Now, people's expectations are high. Can the DPJ deliver? And there's big question marks of whether they can hit the ground running, whether they actually have the capacity to take over all the policy making from the bureaucracy. So I think that they're really going to have to think hard about how they can cooperate with the bureaucracy rather than displace them.
Yukari Sato, how much difficulty do you think the DPJ will have in terms of trying to streamline this Japanese system that they say they will try to do?
Well, it's funny because the public, if you look at the Japanese public opinions, the Japanese public seems to think that it is the DPJ rather who can change the Japanese bureaucrats. But what's going on right now in reality is that the DPJ as a party has been supported by the bureaucrats, labor unions. And I do not believe, and a lot of people do not believe that the DPJ, even though they are advocating a big change in the bureaucrat system, not many people do believe that the DPJ can actually carry out the bureaucrats change. It is the task of the public to come to the recognition that what the DPJ is saying and what is in reality what they can do can be very different.
Yukihisa Fujita, your leader said that there definitely is a need to streamline the system, to cut down on the bureaucracy. Where do you actually start? And are we expecting to see more bureaucrats on the unemployment line once if you do get into power?
The cabinet meeting is a rubber stamp sort of stamping ceremony that the agendas have been decided by the meeting of permanent secretaries. And therefore, the cabinet is not a place that we can exchange opinions and so on. So it's not bureaucrats as people, but a system in which the pensions and revenues, taxes have not been utilized for the people. And it has been said by Mrs. Yukari Sato that labor unions in the bureaucracies have been running. But actually, it's a system of bureaucracy, the leadership of the bureaucracy. And the leading bureaucrats after the retirement have moved from one government corporation to another. And in the realm of a few years, he earns something like 600 million yen, like golden parachutes. And those are the systems that we can change.
Jeff Kingston, there are reports that show that the Japanese economy is on the rebound now. How much do you think that will change the voters' opinion polls? And perhaps this expectation that the DPJ will get into power may not come to fruition.
Well, the recovery is very modest and it's very fragile, and I don't think anybody here in Japan thinks that they're out of the woods yet. I mean, the government threw a whole lot of money at this problem, about 8% of the GDP, to get 0.9% growth. So, fiscal stimulus works. China's recovery and stimulus program has worked. So really a sustained recovery is still out of reach. If you look at sentiments among car makers, among real estate, construction, retail firms, they remain pessimistic. And so I think that the people are still feeling the pinch. Summer bonuses are down, wages are down, job insecurity is up. And so I think that the voters remain very skeptical about how much this economic recovery is improving their lives. I mean, if you think back, over the last 10 years, household disposable income has shrunk 20%. I think that that is one of the reasons why the voters are going to punish the LDP at the polls.
Yukari Sato, given the current unpopularity that the LDP is facing, after the elections, whether the LDP gets into power or not, will the party undertake major reforms?
Whether or not the LDP can actually win the majority in this election or not, I think it is the task of the LDP to continue its own structural reform policy track.
You said that the LDP should continue its reform. It hasn't even really started, has it? What sort of reforms do you think the LDP should take immediately?
Well, the thing is that we have been advocating and actually implementing reforms, a set of reform policies since the time, at least as far as I know, since the time of the Koizumi administration. The problem is that there was some setback since then. That's a problem, but we do need to continue on its reform track that has been initiated under the Koizumi administration. That means that the small government, implementation of the small government, and leave the parts of the job that have been done by the administration to the private sector as far as they can do. But the problem was rather that the process and the speed of the reform hasn't been good enough. so that the Japanese economy hasn't been able to catch up with the pace of the globalization
Yukari,
that was going around Japan.
We're just running out of time. I need to give Jeff Kingston the last say here. Jeff, no matter which party wins the polls, what sort of challenges will be facing Japan's new leaders?
Well, I think that the DPJ has to prioritize. It's made a lot of good promises. It has to be able to deliver on a number of them in its first 100 days. And so, you know, what they want to do is put more money in people's pockets, and that sounds good. How are they going to do that? They want to take over policy making. Again, it's something that they have to figure out how to do. And they keep talking about how they're going to pay for all these programs, pay for all the lower revenues by finding savings in the budget. And they're going to have to really work pretty hard, I think, to find enough savings to pay for all the presents that they're doling out.
And unfortunately, Jeff, we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. That's all the time we have for this edition of 101 East. My thanks to our guests from all the team. Thanks for watching.